Welcome to Dubai Real Estate Unplugged, brought to you by the team here at Haus & Haus Real Estate. I'm Luke Remington, the Managing Director for the Haus & Haus Group, and today we're going to be talking all things project management. What is it? When you might need a project manager, and how you can benefit your next renovation or construction project with a project manager. Today I'm joined by James Sharples from Bauhaus. Welcome, James.
Thank you, Luke.
James, good to see you. James, let's dive into it. Let's hear a bit about you, because you've got a really interesting background. One that I kind of, when I heard about what you've done over, you've been in the Middle East for quite a long time. Tell us a bit about you and what you've been up to.
Yeah, so I've been in the Middle East for around 11 years.
Okay.
My background was in surveying.
Okay.
I did 5 years over here in the surveying field in Dubai.
Okay.
Moved over to Jones Lang LaSalle,
okay,
which is a big corporate firm over here and globally.
Okay.
I spent just over 5 years at JLL,
right,
within the consultancy projects and development services team.
Yeah.
Where I worked with a lot of global corporate firms, JP Morgan's, Pfizer,
okay,
Clifford Chance's. So delivered a lot of the head offices over in the UAE.
So you were predominantly working with these big corporates on their offices?
Yes.
So, okay, Jones Lang LaSalle consulted, James Sharples comes on board and helps them, and so on and so forth.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll manage the process from concept to handover.
Okay. So you've gone on then and you've gone on to Bauhaus. Obviously, we're in real estate, and from my point of view, project management, it wasn't really heard of about, I don't know, for me certainly, in the UK or out here up until probably 2-3 years ago. Then what I tend to see is every community I tend to drive around at the moment, there seems to be scaffolding outside and lots of work. So people, if they find their home now at the moment, they seem to be extending their homes, or, you've got a lot of construction companies popping up. Who are Bauhaus Project Management and what do they do?
So Bauhaus Project Management are a consultancy firm,
okay,
within the residential sector.
Okay.
We focus a lot of our work on the high-end luxury developments,
yeah,
and we do range from, it could be the smaller renovations to the larger ones.
Okay.
But we do deal with a lot of high net worth individuals,
okay,
and investors who simply don't have the time to manage a construction project and they don't know where to start.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but if I'm buying a property or I've bought a property and it doesn't quite suit me, but I'm thinking usually what we say is if you show someone a property and you want 10 things and you can deliver on 6 or 7 of them, yeah, those clients should buy that property, and then they have to put up with those three other things. You will, unless you're actually going to build your house. What tend to happen before the project managers came on the scene, as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, you give it to the builder,
yeah, and
the builder just runs with it. Why is it all of a sudden come in so much about the project manager? Where's this all come from? Why has there been such a... I hope do you get the feeling it has kind of been a flurry with it, yeah, as well?
Oh, definitely.
Why is this?
I think, and I'm sure you're experiencing it as well within the residential sector, there's a lot of sales happening.
Yeah.
And that obviously filters down to the construction side of things.
Yeah.
Once you sell,
yeah,
it's got to go somewhere. And like you say, people want to make that property into their own.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, that's filtering into the construction sector. Now, in the past, the contractors did have the time and effort and resources to cope with the amount of works,
yeah,
which is where you'll go to the standard big names.
Yeah.
They would be able to take that work on.
So someone within that construction company would be appointed to manage that property previously?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so no, you'll still have project managers within any construction firm.
Okay.
Now, what we're finding is those big contractors, which trusted contractors that you'll typically go to, they're simply too busy to take on the workload.
Okay.
So those contractors, you've got to go to other contractors within the market.
Yeah.
Now, that's great, and yeah, it spreads out the workload, but what we're finding is a lot of the contractors are wanting a piece of the pie, and they're not necessarily capable of doing the jobs. So it might be annual maintenance contractors who see all this work going on, and they want to they can see how much work's out there, and they want to get involved in these projects. Which again, okay, fair enough, but are they capable of doing the projects? Okay.
So what we're basically seeing, James, is that maybe over the years that a contractor has been picked out for Mr. and Mrs. Jones. They want to run with someone, but the contractor has someone to manage it, but they're only going to manage it to the standard of that construction company. And if I'm not in construction myself and I've employed a construction company, I don't really, unless I'm on site all day, I don't really see what's going on. So is that what you would essentially see a project management consultant would do? What it would be their main role?
So there's a lot of confusion in the market, especially residential. Commercial, it's standard in the commercial market. Now in residential, end user, kind of first time buyer, wanting developer, they see a project manager as, okay, I'm a project manager, but realistically, a project manager with a construction firm, they're managing the construction side of things. They're not dealing with the fundamentals before you appoint a contractor, i.e. designers, design management, budget management, etc. Those project managers from a construction background, they will get the BOQ, the drawings, and they will build that as per
BOQ being
bill of quantities. So again, they will receive those set of drawings and they will build that. They're not involved in the start of the project. So what we're saying is that if someone has taken on a construction company, what about if they don't have a designer? Let's say we're looking at one of your smaller projects. I don't know how small you tend to go, but I know you've obviously done quite a few jobs, where we've passed on clients to Bauhaus. But these smaller renovations that maybe you've got a couple that they don't want the designers, they find their builder, they've got their quote and they're happy. Is this something you would still dive into? Yes. So we could still manage that side of things. So there's different procurement routes. So there's the traditional approach, and then there's the design and build, where you go to one source, design and build contractor, they'll do the design. They will do the build for you throughout. Now, what we're finding with the smaller renovation jobs, which is not necessarily wrong, but you'll find clients having, I don't know, they'll say to a few contractors, say, come and price my job. And the contractors will come in, they'll price it, and you'll get a wide variety of prices back. So it could be, for example, a client came to me the other day, they said, I've got a price back for 400,000 and I've got another one for 1.2.
Wow.
I think what's really important, I said to the client, I was like, well, there's obviously something wrong there. What specifications are these contractors proposing on your project? Are they going to Dragon Mart? Or are they going to a reputable dealer? And all depends on the specifications.
Do you think clients actually know? It's difficult. Do you think there's clients that maybe unless they're in the construction field themselves, let's say you've got the husband who's working in banking and the wife's working in IT, they don't have much of an idea about construction, but they want it to look like a picture out of a magazine. They can get the quote at 400,000, they can get the quote at 1.2 million. The quote at 400,000, do you usually think they're going into the quality of the tiling, the quality of the flooring, or do you think they're just hoping that it's actually just going to look like this, and it not necessarily just going to look like it, but how is it going to look in a year, 2, 3, 4, 5, and how much pain or stress is it going to cause on the family while this 2, 3, 6 month renovation is going on?
That's exactly what it is. You've knocked the nail on the head, Luke.
So would you say that is the problem essentially that Bauhaus has come in the market to solve?
Yeah, definitely. So I think what we're finding as well a lot of contractors are cutting corners.
Yeah.
So they'll be putting forward bill of quantities to a client, and they'll see that price, and they'll be driven by that price.
Yeah.
Whereas they don't actually know what they're getting.
Yeah.
So we come in and we will evaluate it to make sure that the client is getting the best for their money.
Yeah.
And again, if contractors are high, we will evaluate that bill of quantities to make sure that they're within the market rates.
Yeah.
From our experience, we've obviously got a lot of data which we've collated throughout the years to make sure that they are within.
Yeah.
And it gives the client comfort and reassurance moving forward.
I don't know whether the gloves are off and you're getting in the ring, but is it the other construction company liking you? Because from what I can understand is, if I've just won that job at 400,000 and then I've got a strict James Sharples coming in with the clients to look at it every day or twice a week or 3 times a week, whatever it may be, what do the construction companies think of you?
So there's 2 ways of looking at it.
Yeah.
So especially with residential, again, client management is key, which will fall on me. So making sure that we're limiting those changes and variation throughout the construction process. So they see us as a benefit, but at the same time, they do see, obviously, they don't want to be scrutinized on their prices. But we've got to make sure our clients are protected. We are the client's point of contact. We're on the client side. But we're also there to make sure that the project runs smoothly. And again, some contractors won't like it, but a lot of the bigger firms, they're used to working with a consultant, and they see the benefits.
What about the contracts, James? Would you be looking into the contracts through, between the client and the construction company? A lot of these contracts, I've actually done a renovation on my property. I didn't have a contract. So there wasn't that you need to pay X at a certain date. It was very, very loose. And looking back, I think I probably got away quite lightly in terms of not a huge amount went wrong, but I was involved in it daily. I was there looking at what's going on. But do you see a lot, I know maybe not so much with the big contractors, but with the smaller contractors where we're seeing, lots of renovations currently going on in Emirates Living at the moment, Arabian Ranches, we can see, I know you guys are dealing with a lot on the Palm at the moment. How these smaller contractors, are there contracts in place? And if they are they protecting the clients, or are the clients just, if there's a problem, we'll face it when we get to it? What do you tend to see in that?
Again, you're absolutely right. With the smaller contractors, they will put onerous contracts forward to the client. Right. The client doesn't know any better. So they'll sign these contracts, whereas realistically, with any construction project, you should be holding the contractor accountable for what they promised you, with delay damages, certain clauses within that contract to make sure that it's run correctly. And to give the consultant, to give the client that push on that contractor to make sure that they do fulfill their deliverables, which they promise you from the outset.
What would you say are probably the biggest issues with contractors? Would it be the quality? Would it be the time delays?
I think it's over-promising, under-delivering. You see it so often. So you see it on a daily basis. So contracts will promise 8-month timelines. Realistically, it's going to take 12 months. But they do that to win the project, and then they'll come up with excuses throughout the construction timeline to get that time back. They've already won the project.
So the benefit with having Bauhaus on board, if we have the construction company and they've said, look, it's going to take 8 months, is that someone like you that's been at JLL and you've been doing it for a long time, is you're on hand to answer any questions, go over anything. And what I find is it's probably not not something people would necessarily look at, but it's something that I feel happens, and I've heard a few clients talk about it, was they were quoted at the start to have a certain tile, or they were quoted at the start to have certain lights, or certainly things that are hidden in the build that maybe go behind the walls or the sockets. So they pay a certain amount and maybe they want this brand or certain things, but actually if someone's not watching, then sometimes the contractor will down price or try to make more of a margin by giving cheaper items. Not all contractors, but I suppose this would be having you on board. You're like the police. You get to look at all these things to say, look, hang on, that's not what the client wanted. So that's something you're doing as well?
We oversee the construction as well, so to make sure that quality assurance is there. And again, you're right, some contractors will try and cut corners and put specifications in that they haven't paid for. So that is saving them money, but it's ultimately affecting the client in the long run because of the quality of those materials. That's something that we will cover and ensure, along with the other design consultants, depending on the procurement route that the client goes down. Okay.
And if a client is coming to you, James, is there different packages that you tend to offer, or is it kind of one package and you do everything, or you only do part of it, or can you scale it or change it, or do you have certain kind of like a gold, silver, bronze service, or how much someone wants you to be involved? How does it tend to work?
So we can limit our scope according to the project, but would typically advise a client to go with the full services. Weekly meetings, project reporting, minutes of meetings, monthly reports, cost estimates. It's really important for any project. Me dipping out in and out of a project, we can do, and we can reduce our fee for that. But at the end of the day, projects warrant more time as and when required. So 1 week there might be an issue on a project, there might be a hurdle that I've got to overcome before it gets to the client as well. It might take 5 days of the week, 6 days of the week, and I'll be purely allocated on that. Other weeks it might be a bit slower, everything's running smoothly. I'll go and visit the site and do my regular checks. But again, with construction, there are hurdles along the way.
Changing, constantly. How often do you feel you've got someone at the start, they're not sure, they hear that it's right to have you on board, they can see that you've got tons of experience, they know it's going to be smoother, but you are an extra cost. Do you feel that they'll say, right, well, I need you a bit, but I don't want you too much, because they're trying to save costs? And then as things go on, and there's maybe, if there's a few things happening, and maybe you've gone in at 1-2 days a week, that they realise that you're gold and they need you more, and they're upscaling you, like, James, just handle it, take it over. Do you find this happens a lot?
We do, yes.
And also you're probably going to find where people have they've started without you, and then they want you to kind of come in and fix a massive mess that's you've not created because you weren't involved from the start.
We've got a couple of projects on that at the moment. We've come in very late to the project, and ultimately the damage has been done. But we're trying to manage the client's expectations and the contractor to make sure that we're actually delivering with quality and within the timeline which has been promised. But again, it's coordination, which is my job, to make sure the designers are doing their jobs. They're coming to meet the milestone date. They're meeting their milestone dates before construction even occurs. The correct procedures are in place. So material submissions, shop drawing submissions, and everything else. All of that documentation should be in place before you even start on site. And again, procurement is one of the biggest items on any project, which are the majority of the delays. And as a project management consultant, we will oversee that whole process for the client to ensure that the different work streams are coordinating to make sure the contractor can do their job. Because you were saying at the start you saw 400 to 1.2, is it advisable to get 3 quotes, and then once you've got those 3 quotes you can kind of look at the numbers and think, right, that joinery on that quote is substantially higher than that one, and you can kind of, they've made too much. Are you negotiating with the contractor on behalf of the client? Yes. Okay. We negotiate, but the problem is with those BOQs. So the contractors are coming in without a design in place. So they're it's not the contractor's fault. they're taking a stab in.
So how are they, if it's not the contract's fault, how are they making up the numbers? Is it kind of are they just hoping that they work off the measurements, which, are they just taking the measurements?
So it's not so much the measurements, it's kind of, they don't have a proper scope from the client.
Right.
So again, anyone can come in and say, oh yeah, I can price this for 100,000.
Yeah.
But what, and you'll probably get the product, but what quality is it?
Yeah.
So again, there's obviously something majorly wrong with that big discrepancy. And if they do get signed up, what will happen was they'll submit their material samples to the client, and the client will be like, no, I don't want that. Yeah. I want this. Yeah. With gold finish. Yeah. Okay, well, variation, and it keeps going. It is cutting corners, which a lot of contractors are doing. Fair enough on the smaller works where it's a minor extension, but when you're talking serious renovations, switching finishes and everything else, it's really important the client knows what they're signing up for.
Yeah. Do you see at the moment that, let's say, I'm going to pick a figure out there, let's say we're looking at a £1 million dirham renovation. We don't have a watertight contract in place, but we have a contract. We get to the stage where, more and more money's going out, that you realise that the client's going to end up paying more than $1 million. You're not on board. The contract isn't great. The client maybe goes to their solicitor or the lawyer. The lawyer looks at it and says, well, yeah, we can fight it, but it's going to cost you X, Y, Z. Yeah. If my budget is $1 million and I have $1 million and I don't have $2 million, but the contractor wants an extra 200,000-300,000, because I can imagine that prices go up and change over the course of time. What do I do? If I haven't got you on board, what do I do? Was that one of the reason you're telling me I need you?
Well, this is the importance of the fundamentals of the project, making sure everything's in place before you get that contractor on board with contract clauses and everything else. Because with those contracts that some of the contracts are providing, it doesn't have any of that in there. Yeah. And that's what we ensure. So it might be that the client's already received the contract, but typically we would draft the contract for the client. Yeah. Obviously we're not lawyers, but we will have a standard set of terms and conditions which we're used to. Typically the FIDIC short form green book.
What's that, James?
It's a type of contract, construction contract, which contractors should be aware of. Yeah. And it's a standard form of contract.
I'm not trying to be rude, and I don't want any listeners to think this, but some contractors I see don't, even driving past, some sites, seeing the vehicles, seeing, maybe some of the staff, they don't give you the impression that they're going to know a lot of these things that you're saying, like FIDIC and these kind of things that you'd probably be used to with dealing with your commercial companies from big corporates. So what do you do? Do you leave these companies out? Because obviously maybe they're fit for purpose, maybe they're not, maybe they work at a certain price budget, or do you have to be pretty flexible and understand that you might get stressed, but you're going to pay a cheap price?
Yeah, so we would fully vet the contractors before we even get into contracts or even go out to them. Yeah. To ensure that they've got the resources to do the job, they are capable of doing the job. Yeah. And we're not going to have issues later down the line when we get on site. You wouldn't believe the stakes that I've seen in construction sites within the residential market. I was actually quite shocked. Yeah. People on site with flip-flops on, no health and safety, and they don't realise the implications that can have.
The client doesn't realise the implications?
Yeah, client.
They think it's not my problem, it's the contractor's issue.
Yeah, okay. But realistically, the authorities can shut that site down. Yeah. Yeah. If anything happens and they're not following a health and safety protocol, it can have a massive impact.
And Dubai's moved on massively. Looking at that, they've moved on. You hear the DDA, you hear about different approvals, and you get to this stage and you got to get approval and all these kind of things. So a lot of things externally, a lot of checks are going on apart from you. Are you arranging these checks, or the contractors arranging these checks?
So it depends on the procurement method. Okay. Again, we would appoint the correct team for that specific project. If it's a design and build, we'll put it on the contractor. If it's a traditional, we would appoint a professional, an architect of record, to do that for you. So again, it protects your timeline. So once we're developing the design, we can submit for certain authority approvals. So when we do get a contractor on board, they're ready to go. So again, we would appoint a bespoke team for that project.
It sounds, correct me if I'm wrong, that Bauhaus has a certain kind of client profile. So it sounds like probably typically high net worth individuals, people crucially that want to probably high value on their own time in business that don't want to go into it, or probably people that have done it before without you and realize how much of a nightmare it could be. But when I say high net worth individuals, is that the case? Or I know you're talking low end, but can you give me any idea that, you would be involved if typically a construction cost started at X, or is it just you have to be approached, look at it, and then make a decision? So to make it worth the client's while as well, we would typically say anything above $1 million. Refurb costs, renovation, whatever they may be doing. But again, we can get involved in any scale of projects, but it's whether the client's willing to pay kind of the consultancy fees for our services, because we can, on the bigger projects, we can save the client a lot of money throughout the process, regardless of our paying our consultancy fees. So having a PMC is cost effective, that's what you're saying. Just quickly, let's go into it. How can it pay for itself or save money to the client?
So again, with direct packages, we can save on that side of things. The contractual side of things, the bill of quantities, we'll review the rates to make sure that they're aligned with the market. If they're not, we'll pull them up on it. Throughout the construction process, managing variations, change control, consultancy fees. Again, if you've got designers who are appointed throughout the construction, we've got to make sure that those designers are meeting their contractual obligations. So the client's actually getting a lot more for their money from our side. So we're overseeing the whole process for them. And again, limiting those costs. Before any variation is administered to the client, we will fully check that before it goes.
So if you've got the cost from the construction company and you've got these three companies, by the time you've done your negotiations and so on and so forth, what you're typically going to find is that cost saving that you would bring down would more than make up for what you're going to charge them. And how long are you involved, James? Are you involved from start to finish? Are you involved, typically from start to finish? Are you holding hands with them for part of the duration, or is it up to the clients?
It's typically start to finish. To get the most out of our services, but we can join the project at any stage. So if it's a case of snagging and handover, we can come in for the final few months to make sure we give that contract to the final push. It could be the design could have already been completed and they need someone to do their tender for them, all the administration of the project. Because I think what a lot of clients don't realise there's so much documentation and administration that goes into construction, and there's a lot behind the scenes. They think some clients think it's just a case of building it. It's not. There's a lot more to it, and it's making sure that that's documented to ultimately protect the client at the end of the day.
I'm sure you get a lot of people deal with Bauhaus because obviously your experience and your colleagues' experience. I know you've had a lot of or certainly I've had clients that I've spoken to that I know have then worked with you that are extremely happy. Do you work with everyone out there? Do you speak to all different, real estate agents, designers, all this kind of thing?
Yeah, so we work with a lot of real estate companies in Dubai. Obviously, being in the market, construction market is quite a small industry.
Yeah, of course,
we work with a lot of architects, interior designers, architects of records, and it's important to us for us to have that network. And that's one of our massive selling points as well. We've got those market leaders in the industry, and we know who to go to give you, protect you as the client, to make sure that we're delivering on our promises.
Is it more so, James, obviously you've got that kind of UK background, you've probably got more stringent checks on the contractors, you've got workmen that, probably would be coming in to do your construction that have probably been, I don't know, they're a joiner and they've been a joiner for the last 20 years, and their grandparents were joiners and their dads were joiners, and maybe the level of construction, or the electrician is a NIEIC, I remember, for that day, or the plumber was Corgi registered or stuff. Whereas at the moment in Dubai, yes, we've got the construction workers, but maybe they haven't been doing it a huge amount of time. Maybe do you see, how is the construction that you see? Is there some good and bad? I suppose it's probably unfair to say about Dubai. It's probably the same actually in the UK or anywhere else in the world.
Well, this is part of the process that we do before we appoint a contractor. We want to see on paper what that contractor is putting forward to the client before we appoint. Again, it's all well and good saying, oh yeah, we've got a great contractor, but what team are they putting forward on that project? Yeah. It could be someone just started in Dubai and they don't have the experience that you would expect of that level of contractor. So from our side, it's really important to see on paper and make sure that contractor is delivering on their promises to the client.
But you're going to have certain contractors that you've used time and time again that you get what you pay for, so you're going to recommend contractors as well?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so we would recommend the contractor. We'll put a full report together for the client to make an educated decision. Yeah. Again, we can't dictate to the client which contractor they want to go with, but we will recommend, from Bauhaus's point of view, the best with what's in front of us, the best way forward for that client. Yeah. And again, with knowing the different construction companies, we know the best team in those construction companies. Mm-hmm. So we can select a bespoke team for that specific project. Yeah, yeah. Knowing the best PMs. Yeah, interesting. Just my last question, where are you guys working or doing most of your work at the moment? If you speak to a client like, James, I need some help, and you're like, right, I bet they're going to say they're living in XYZ. Where are you seeing? Are you seeing these places I mentioned, the Palm and... Yeah. We're seeing a lot on Palm Jumeirah. Yeah. Doing a lot in Dubai Hills. Yeah, of course, I've seen that. We've got a big development in Dubai Hills at the moment, which is great. Okay. It's pretty much full demolition and then starting again. So we're working on smaller extensions to the big scale projects. So you're finding clients are actually demolishing what they had? Yeah, as much as they can. Yeah. Back to the shell, base build. Okay. Yeah. Up to what the developer or the master community guidelines would allow, and there's rules always changing like that at the moment as well. James, thank you ever so much. It's a big insight. I think project management is here to stay. I think it's probably something that was less heard of in the past, but certainly I know it's a knock-on effect from the real estate market, and if it's anything to go by what House & House has been doing over, the numbers and the properties that we're selling on a monthly basis at the moment is staggering. And there's lots of other real estate companies like us that, the numbers and the amount of people coming in here and the amount of wealth and what they want. Some things I'm hearing at the moment, I want a cigar room, or I want that glass table turning my Lamborghini. And you're seeing all these crazy things, so I'm sure you're seeing it a lot more than we are. So definitely something to stay. I think also what I would say to anyone is that there's no harm in having a chat with these guys. So if you do believe you can manage a property, construction or redevelopment or what have you, maybe that's fine, but there's no harm in having a chat with James and seeing what he brings to the table and hopefully what he could add to it. So thank you ever so much, James. Thank you to all our listeners for joining. If you'd like to find out more, we'll put some links on the website and contact details for Bauhaus in our show notes. Don't forget to subscribe, whatever channel you're listening on, so you're notified when we drop new episodes. You can follow us at House & House on Instagram, Facebook and LinkedIn. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Thank you, Luke.